Today's episode is brought to you by the Great Courses Plus. Head on over to thegreatcoursesplus.com/rogue, sign up and keep us in business. Thank you and you're welcome. Keep learning. This is a big one. I'll put up my Cowboy Bebop DVD box set against
my Texas Chainsaw Massacre Laserdisc.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
All right, here we go.
Not bad, Brushwood.
We'll play Sheboygan style. You can take the next one.
All right. This one's for you. Table's yours.
See what you're doing. Oh, yeah, I agree.
Sheboygan style. Tell you what, double or nothing, one shot. I'm gonna take the whole table.
The rest of the table?
Mm-hmm.
It's yours to lose. You got me again.
So you guys ready for your lesson?
Just give us a second, will you?
Yeah, let us have this.
All right, we're here at Skinny Bob's, home of the Texas Open, the longest running pool tournament in the country, and we've got Wes and Jude here with us to teach us how to not look like idiots at the pool table.
It felt blasphemous, everything we just did. The deepest thing I fear going to a pool hall is looking
Vampires?
like... The second thing I fear the most about going to a pool hall is looking like a total chump. What is the #1 mistake you see people doing in pool halls?
Oh, I think the first one is what you were doing before. You had your cue elevated really high.
Oh, I thought you meant backwards. like
No, that's legit, right? That's legit. Has anybody ever done that?
I don't actually see that happen very often.
So rule #1 is you're gonna wanna try and keep that cue stick as level as possible. When you elevate, you actually put downward spin on the ball, and that's going to cause that cue ball to curve. So if you want that cue ball to go in a straight path, you wanna keep this as parallel as possible to the table.
Okay, so you got one in.
But I thought, isn't English a thing? Like you want to spin the ball backwards or something?
You do.
But only when you know what you're doing.
Well, you wanna try and keep your cue as level as possible whenever possible.
Okay.
Just try and hit this ball.
Okay, if I was gonna go totally naturally, it would be like this.
Yeah.
But I feel like I'm gonna, whoops. No.
Good start.
I feel like I'm gonna hit it.
But if you elevate a little bit higher.
Oh, so if I'm over
Yeah.
elevated like
Yeah.
this. Yep, not so much. And I see exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah.
You could tell that the spin, by not hitting it in the center, it wandered all over. Now, I always feel like pool's easiest when you're on the edge.
Ooh.
Right.
Is that true or false?
That leads us into one of the other biggest mistakes I see people make.
Yeah.
Is not having a stable bridge hand. The bridge is what you use to hold the shooting end of the pool cue.
Now, is there a single right way to do it?
There are lots of ways.
Does anyone have a squire who gets down and just kind of axes the bridge?
Isn't that what you do with the bridge? Is it called a bridge? Man, we really don't know anything about pool.
Not a thing.
The most important thing with your bridge is that it's stable. I mean, I see people trying to hold the cue like this, or, you know, trying to rest it between knuckles.
I'm actually known in some circuits as the Spocker. So, yeah, it's proven technique. You can
So
use
there
it.
are a couple of really solid bridges, and you touched on probably the first one, which is using
The side.
the side of the table. You said you felt very stable. You put the cue on the edge of the table in the direction you want to shoot. Hold the front with 2 fingers and use your thumb to brace the back edge. Now your cue can only go in a straight line.
Right, yeah. that's the hardest to screw up.
So that's a very stable bridge and will serve you well. But to do this bridge, you have to have some distance between the cue ball and the rail.
At what point would you not use that bridge? Like, that close you would not use it?
If you're that close to the rail, no. It's very difficult to get a good clean hit when you're that close. So one of the other very stable bridges, take your hand, fold it in half, extend your thumb, and put it down on the table. Now the point between your thumb and your first knuckle, you've got a nice stable spot for your cue, and simply by extending your hand or raising, you control the height of where the cue strikes. If you're trying to hit a ball and you want to hit it low, you just extend your fingers. Now your cue is hitting the bottom part of the cue ball. If you want to hit the top of the cue ball, you pull your fingers in tighter, and now you're aiming at the top. But at the same time, your cue remains parallel to the table. This is what is commonly known as the open bridge. You have a nice stable resting point, and you can control the height of the cue by raising and lowering your fingers.
Okay.
There's another type of bridge that I'll show you. It's called the closed bridge. Make an OK sign.
Okay.
Wrap that around the cue. Fold your fingers under so that your middle finger's touching your thumb.
Okay.
And then just like we did on the previous one, set your fingers and the palm of your hand down on the table. Similarly, you control the height of the cue by raising and lowering your 3 fingers.
That's interesting because you're getting significantly more drag by wrapping your index finger on there, so you have to really account for that, right?
You want to hold the cue firmly, but not so tight that you can't move the cue through it.
Also, drag is a term used in pool, right? It is now. Let's just go with it.
But this is why there's chalk at pool halls, right? So that everything slides.
There's a common misconception. The chalk that people use, like this right here,
It's delicious.
actually, it's very delicious, and it's also very abrasive. It's mostly silica and hard metals, as opposed to sidewalk chalk, which is made out of talc, and that's the kind that you want to put on your hand. So this will not help you out with making the cue go through your fingers.
Okay, hold on. But what you're saying is the times that I've ever used one of those to dust the inside of my hands, I've been a pool chooch.
Yeah, it's actually been hindering your ability a bit. Yeah.
Yeah.
It looks cool, though.
Sorry.
No, it doesn't. I don't think I look very good.
Brian walks out of the pool hall like Blue Man Group hands. Just chalk all over him.
Baby powder is pretty good, although that can get a little messy. A lot of players use gloves just like this.
Oh, that makes sense. Equipment.
Oh, yeah. That's probably my problem, right? I just haven't invested in a good stick. Is that the thing?
Exactly.
So we've got the side of the rail, the open bridge, and then the closed bridge. If we do anything other than that, are we just obvious idiots?
No, there's a 4th bridge that's the mechanical bridge. Jude, can you hand me that?
Yeah.
That's what that's
So-
for.
So
Right.
is there any stigma against using this? Like does
Not
anybody
at
at the
all.
top pro level?
Not at all. The mechanical bridge is generally used when you're trying to make a shot that you can't reach and have a stable bridge with your other hand.
Okay.
If, for instance, I'm trying to make that 10 ball and the cue ball is over there, I have to reach all the way out along the table and my bridge hand is now very far away, and if I have any shake at all in my hand,
Yeah.
I'm gonna miss the cue ball.
So you
Right.
want to be just a few inches away with your aiming fulcrum.
Generally, you want to be about 9 inches to a foot away from the cue ball with your bridge hand.
Okay.
Is laying on the table frowned upon? Like,
I think I know this one. You have to keep 1 foot on the floor, right? Is that right?
Ding, Exactly ding,
And,
ding.
and occasionally people will do stuff behind the back if it's over here.
What's become more common is actually using the bridge or shooting opposite-handed.
Ooh, that's a flex.
Yeah.
The mechanical bridge actually works a lot like your open bridge. You rest the cue in one of the little spots. Again, you want to try and keep your cue level. You brace the mechanical bridge with your other hand and then sort of like throwing a dart, you use the cue ball.
Okay, I'm about to make somebody rich. We're gonna take one of those braces and we're gonna turn them into like some brass knuckles. You just wear those and you're like, blam! That's how you win the head game.
These are just recycled Batman logos.
Okay, what is the weirdest bridge you know of?
The weirdest is when they don't have a bridge at all, when they play one-handed. In some circles, playing like this would be okay, where you can use the rail.
Okay, that makes sense at least. You have something
And
holding
in others, will say you can't use any rail, and you have to shoot just like this.
It's okay, but when you do that, are you intentionally being an to other people?
Yeah, like, if somebody beats me like that, we're gonna have words. Like, you didn't have to do that, man.
It's usually used as a handicapping purpose.
Oh, got it. If
So
somebody's super
if
good.
one player is really good and the other player isn't, they'll shoot one-handed.
What's the etiquette for when you walk in and you want to start up a game with someone and you don't know how good they are or how willing they are to play with you? How do you behave there?
Ooh.
In other words, how do we
This is an
say
interesting
we're
pattern.
bad, but we would like to play a game?
Right.
Typical etiquette is that people would play even up when they first play.
Sorry,
People would play even up. They would play just normal pool in the beginning.
Got it.
And it wouldn't be until it was established that there was a difference in skill that you would start to make a game beyond even up sort of scenarios.
That's interesting. That's a little bit like when you play someone in ping pong, you just sort of volley back and forth, and very quickly you could tell whether one player is much, much better than the other.
I've seen many different creative solutions for evening things up. Some people will say, well, you can't use your own cue, or you have to shoot everything opposite-handed or one-handed, or most
bank
commonly,
shots.
or bank shots. Or most commonly what will happen is one person will have to win X number of games, while another person will have to win X minus 2 number of games.
But that first game where you're really kind of judging your opponent, that's where hustles start, right?
That's what I was about to say. Is that considered a faux pas to full-on hustle?
I think hustling is a little less common than people make it out to be. Pool actually has a lot of competitions now. There's tournaments all over the state, all over the country, leagues as well. And there's quite a few people who are playing every single day in their local pubs and pool rooms, amongst friends and family.
So I guess in the case of the classic hustle structure, there's an end payoff and you intentionally play poorly so you can set up one big score, but it sounds like most of the time there's no incentive to play poorly for any one game.
Oh yeah, I don't think that happens a whole lot anymore. I mean, there was a time where people were jumping on freight trains and traveling the country and
Simpler times, man. If we could, we'd be back there.
But nowadays, aside from the fact that I think that sort of interaction is usually frowned upon, the internet also makes it very difficult for people to walk into a pool room who are unknown. Everyone is known.
Oh, that's right, because if you're good, then almost certainly you appear on camera at some point.
Usually.
And if you're playing against somebody who is confident in their skills, they probably have seen you.
Exactly.
Wow.
It's also worth noting, league play is becoming more and more popular, and most leagues, amateur leagues, have handicapping systems where a player's skill level is tracked over a long period of time, and you get a ranking based on that skill.
Like Madden.
Yeah,
Right.
or similar to what, chess or?
Exactly like chess.
Okay, got it.
actually. We have our own ELO ranking system, which is identical to what happens in chess. If you win a game, your rating goes up. You lose a game, your rating goes down. Depending on who you play, it could influence it greatly or it can influence it by a small amount.
So within a league, all of a sudden that becomes a very easy negotiation. If you're a 2,000 and I'm a 800, then it's like, okay, well, obviously I would like to play a game. Will you please do it with your toes instead of your hands?
Yeah.
The pool ELO system actually goes from about 200 to around 850. So if someone came in with a 2,000, yes, I would want them playing with their toes.
So when I learned to play pool, I actually, like a nerd, read the BSA book. Is it BSA? Or
BCA, Billiards
BCA. I was
Congress
thinking of the Boy
America.
Scouts of America. Tell me if I'm remembering this right. Every single shot should be either explicitly or implicitly called, and even if your ball goes in a hole and it's not the hole that you intended to, that's a scratch. Is that true?
No, not really. It depends on the game you're playing. Some games aren't called shot at all, such as 9-ball.
Okay.
9-ball is a slop game. You can make it ball in any pocket you want. Everything counts. And so long as the shot were legal If you make the 9 ball, even accidentally, you win the game. There are some games where you do have to call everything, and 8 ball is a good example of that. However, unlike what you see in a lot of pubs, you don't have to call every single detail of the shot. You just have to call the ball and the pocket.
So how you get there could be sloppy, not the way you intended, but as long as the right ball goes in the right hole.
Exactly.
Other question, when you scratch an 8 ball, when I read the book, it had no mention of behind this second diamond over here. It was just straight up ball in hand. You got to put the ball wherever you want. Is that the real thing or no?
Well, we call this area the kitchen. And when you scratch, there are some games where you have to put the cue ball in the kitchen. However, most of the time, you get what's called ball in hand. And you can place that cue ball anywhere you want and shoot in any direction.
Last time Brian got called out for having ball in hand.
All right, moving right along.
Yeah. He got kicked out of KB Toys. That was the
Okay, you did mention that this is not hand chalk, but why does this make a difference?
It adds a layer of chalk to your tip, which creates more friction with the cue ball. That way it doesn't slip right off, called a miscue, when you hit that cue ball. So the way you do it is you just want to hold the cube of chalk in your hand, and just like you were drawing on the sidewalk, just make sure that you're covering the entire top half of your tip. That's it.
Huh.
In fact, I can usually tell when someone doesn't play pool very well when they grind it in to the point where you can hear it squeak. I don't even know if I can do that.
He's talking about. How much does the equipment really matter?
It can matter a great deal. There are a lot of pool cues that you'll see in bars with slip-on tips, and they may not be entirely like one-piece cues. They sort of vibrate when you hit the cue ball.
What does that mean?
Oh,
I don't think you're talking about a pool stick, man.
I'm saying it'll be.
They have those that are connected to the internet now.
You might run into cues that are broken, and they're not entirely one piece.
Okay.
And a good pool cue, a well-made pool cue, even if it's made of 2 pieces, will feel like it's 1 piece. A lot of the materials right now are used to create low deflection, which means that when you're using side spin, the cue ball won't deflect very much to the other side.
So you're able to get the cue ball going in the direction you're hitting, and the cue ball is spinning as opposed to being knocked askew.
Exactly. We call that, believe it or not, squirt.
That makes sense. Sure.
Are there types of gear that are forbidden in tournament use? Like, if you had like maybe lights blinking in the haft?
I would love to believe somebody like
lasers.
has a RoboCop
Yeah.
They make
costume.
lasers now for your pool cue.
There are no lasers allowed, yes.
Okay.
Exactly
I saw
right.
that episode of Quantum Leap.
You're not allowed any sort of mechanical devices on your cue, like it can't have any sort of moving parts.
What are some of the other like primary aspects of pool that we may have overlooked?
The table. The most important piece of equipment we have.
They're not all the same.
No. In fact, this one right here is one of the most well-made tables out there. This is a diamond smart table. And what distinguishes this table from the table you might see at your average bar is it can recognize which one is the cue ball with a laser.
Okay, because I always thought like the cue ball had to be a different size. I don't know how the cue ball comes out one end and everything else goes out the other end.
That's exactly right. Typically what would happen is that either they would use a magnet to determine which one was the cue ball, or they would use some sort of heavy cue ball or large cue ball that would trigger a different mechanism that would send the cue ball the other way. On this table, they have a laser determining that cue ball.
How do you have to adjust your play based on the size of the cue ball?
It depends on whether the cue ball is too large or too small, but it can impact the way you play immensely. Sometimes you'll have to use more draw than you expect to. Sometimes you have to use less draw than you expect to.
Draws this motion?
Draw meaning backspin or top spin.
Got it.
Follow would be top spin. The bottom line is, when the cue ball is bigger or smaller, you're not going to get that pure perpendicular hit off the object ball.
So if you're just grabbing a stick and you don't have your own personalized cue, how do you pick? Is there like a particular...
I know there are weights. There's numbers on them that they weigh different amounts.
Really?
No? No. Forget I'm here.
The
I'm
most
just gonna
important
vanish.
thing-
No, it's fine.
The most important thing you're going to want to look at is the tip, because that's the part that's going to be in play the most. So I would look at the tip first. That one actually is really good. You see how the ferrule here is actually connected to the cue? That's a good sign. And how that tip is perfectly lined up with that ferrule.
So
also a good
is
sign.
this one a bad one?
Not quite as good. You can see how there's a little bit of separation between the cue stick and the ferrule. And the tip seems to be in pretty good shape though.
And is that just because all of these aspects introduce more randomness into every shot?
Yes, yes. And if you're using, a lot of bars will have this, a slip-on tip where it literally just will be placed on top of the cue without any glue or anything.
That seems insane.
It is.
Okay. Well, so what about the weight thing? The weight doesn't matter at all?
Not overwhelmingly. The most common weight for pool cues is about 19 ounces. In the beginning, a lot of younger and newer pool players will usually go a little bit heavier, 20 to 21.
In high school, that was my thing. I'd just get the heaviest one I could find.
I think a lot of people settle around 19 ounces, sometimes even a little bit less, around 18 or 17.
All right, last chance. Any other bits of advice that we need to know before we go into the pool hall?
Always be aware of a common lane. So if you have a neighbor on the adjacent table, you want to stay out of this lane as much as possible. Take your shot, and then immediately walk to an area that's not a common space.
So this is a bad spot to hang out and just
Exactly.
like act like you own it.
Yes.
Got it.
That's real good to
Never
know.
would have thought about that.
Yeah.
The other common point of etiquette is to try and avoid standing in the person who's shooting in their line of sight.
I definitely have done this move. So this is a
Exactly.
no-no, right?
That's
Okay.
definitely a no-no, but even standing over here and, sort of waving your cue around,
Oh, that is
Or-
like you're an annoying fan
drinking a
at
beer,
free throw shot.
or waving
So,
from
like,
over here.
So you can't like.
Anything that's trying to distract the person taking the shot.
What about like take a shot? Get ready to take a shot, Brian. Like,
Oh no, that's allowed.
oh, you can't do that. Okay. Well, no, get back. No, yeah.
Hold on. If I'm going to take a shot, I'm going to do it right.
Do it. Good. Good.
All right, here we go.
Okay.
Blowing his
Here you
ear,
go, yeah.
blowing his ear, that's a good one.
Oh, that's infected. Yeah, that's infected.
All right, so if people want to up their game, where should they go?
Well, if you're in the Austin area, you can look me up on Facebook at Jude Rosenstock Pool.
You do lessons.
And if you're not in Austin, look around for posters in your local bar, or check out poolplayers.com or playbca.com to learn about local leagues in your area.
All right, awesome. When do we fight with these? This is the part I don't understand.
Yeah,
I've
no.
seen the movies.
He'll take
I'll
us
fight
out.
him. Is this actually Skinny Bob? Do I have him?
This is Skinny Bob.
That's
If-
right,
If
that's
you're
right.
in Round Rock, you
Come
can
on.
come play at Skinny Bob's. You don't need to Steven Seagal this guy. All right, Brian, great courses pop quiz. What have you learned?
I've learned that I am better than everybody else because I'm in the middle of a university level class while everybody else is just riding the subway.
You're gonna have to give me a little more. I mean,
I
yes.
mean, look at them. They're going to work. They're just standing there. They're holding on to the loops and whatnot. I'm in the middle of a university course. I'm listening to Professor Michael Starbird explain to me the nature of statistics and probability. Calculus made simple.
All of us other people who are looking things up on Wikipedia and, where all the idiots hang out on YouTube. I'm talking about us, by the way. Let's be clear.
Sure.
But you, not anymore. You are evolved, is what you're saying.
No. I've elevated. I've leveled up as a human being, and that's all thanks to our friends over at The Great Courses. If you go to thegreatcoursesplus.com/rogue, not only will you be keeping us in business, you'll be learning from the best professors in the biz.
Oh, I've got my eye on a couple of courses, namely the stuff on organic chemistry, so that in future episodes, we don't die.
Really?
I'm gonna pay close attention. There are a broad variety of courses covering philosophy to meditation, chemistry, math, programming.
I took a class on the historical Jesus. Bart Ehrman, I believe, is the professor on that one. It blew my freaking mind. If you want university level education, it's all there and unlimited, all you can eat buffet.
Check it out today and get smarter. Don't be an idiot like me. Learn things like Brian.
We've given it to you. thegreatcoursesplus.com/rogue.
The gift of knowledge. That was what
Also-
it was like.
Say hi to my old professor, Michael Starbird.
Sublime.
He did the calculus one. It was really weird. It was weird to listen. I'm like, that's my old professor.
We don't want the cue ball to go in.
Hold on. There's part of me that I don't know if I can figure out how to do this, but it would be amazing if the next shot was just a cue ball popping out over here.
Well, you'd have to.
Followed by
Sheboygan rules.
Well, I mean, you